everybody. I'm going to apologize in advance because you may hear the bell, but that's all right. We're just going to start with lesson 6-8. This is going to be broken up a little bit differently. We learned last lesson how to write an equation from a line. If you are looking at a graph, you find the slope and y-intercept, but unfortunately, sometimes you can't figure it out from the graph. So I'm going to show you two new methods. This first video is just going to be method 2, which is algebraically. That means without the graph. And this method can be a little bit tricky, but I'll show it to you and then you can decide which method to use. The next method I'm going to show you, which I'll probably break up into another video, is using the graphing calculator, and this works every single time. And you'll always have the use of the graphing calculator, so I'm going to focus on that one. But it's still good to see this. If you're taking applied geometry or geometry next year, this is something you'll see. So the two things you need to write the equation of a line is you need the slope, which we know the formula is y minus y over x minus x, and then the y-intercept. And to find the y-intercept, we're going to use y equals mx plus b to help us. And again, it's all algebraically. It's a little bit tricky, but I'm just going to show it to you, and then I'm going to show you how you can do the exact same thing much easier in the calculator. All right, so it says write the equation of the line that passes through the pair of points. And again, we need a slope and a y-intercept, which we don't have. So let's first find the slope. And I mean, you could take the time to graph these and find the slope, but let's practice with our formula. It helps to write it down. Even if you've written it down several times, it'll stick in your brain a little bit more. So y minus y over x minus x. And if you notice, I labeled my x and y's. Doesn't matter which point you start with. I'm going to start with this point. So I'm going to do negative 9 minus 12, right? Again, y minus y. And then since I started with negative 9, I got to start with the 10. So I'll do 10 minus 7. It doesn't matter which point you start with, as long as you are consistent. All right, so negative 9 minus 12 puts us at negative 21, and 10 minus 7 is 3. And then if you divide that, you get negative 7. So that's your slope. So we can start the equation. Y equals, which is what we're looking for, the equation, y equals negative 7x. But now we need to figure out what the y-intercept is. So to do that, we're going to use y equals mx plus b. Oh, hold on. Sorry for the delay and the interruption. Okay, so sorry about that. Holding this up a bit, but okay. So you first find the slope using your slope formula, y minus y over x minus x. And you have part of the equation. Now to find the y-intercept, you have a couple options. Again, the calculator is a nice one, but we're going to, let me get this off of there. We are going to do this algebraically, just so you can see it. So if we take the equation, y equals mx plus b. M, remember, stands for slope, and we know that the slope is negative 7. We're trying to find what b is. And you might say, well, what about x and y? We got 4 variables here. We'll pick one of the points. It doesn't matter. Let's go with 7, 12. It looks easier. So just pick one point. And remember, every single point is an x and then a y. So I'm going to replace my x and y in the equation with these numbers, just like we did when we were checking to see if a point fell on a line. And I'm also going to put negative 7 in for my slope, and then solve it for b, and that'll tell us our y-intercept. All right, and again, it doesn't matter which point you choose. I just went with 7, 12 because there's no negatives. It really doesn't matter. You'll get the same thing. So instead of y equals, we're going to do 12 equals. Instead of m times x, we're going to do negative 7 times 7. And then we'll leave the plus b because that's your y-intercept. And so as soon as you solve this equation, you'll have your y-intercept. So 12 equals, all right, If you don't know, if you're bad with negatives, if you're bad with multiplying, you always have access to your calculator. Look how quick this is. -7 times 7. -49. All right, now we're trying to get b by itself. The only thing with b is a -49, so we're going to add it to both sides. And again, if you're not good with that, just do 12 plus 49. There's no reason to get this wrong. So b equals 61. That's where it's hitting the y-axis. That would have been really tough to see on a graph. So you can see how the algebraic method can be a little more realistic. So there's your answer. All right, there's a lot to it. I know it's a lot harder than just looking at a graph and saying, oh, my y-intercept's 4, my slope's -1/2, so my equation y equals -1/2 x plus 4. You're doing that same thing, but to find the slope and y-intercept, you have to use your formulas. So again, let's walk through it. To find the slope, we did y minus y over x minus x. To find the y-intercept, we use the y equals mx plus b, and one of our points, solve for b, and that gives us our equation. All right, let's do one more like that, and then I'll show you how you can easily do this in the calculator. All right, so xy, xy. Big numbers again, so I bet our slope and y-intercept are going to be, larger values, and that's okay. So first we got to find the slope. So write down your formula, y minus y over x minus x. Doesn't matter which point you start with. I always just like to start with the first one. It really doesn't matter. So y minus y, -10 minus 2. And then my x minus x, 0 minus 16. If you went the other way, it would have been 2 minus -10 and 16 minus 0. You'll get the same answer in the end. So we have -12 divided by -16, and we definitely want to reduce that. Never want to leave two negatives, and your calculator will do it for you. -12 divided by -16. What are the buttons to read it? You can hit enter, but what do you hit to change it to a fraction? Math, enter, enter. 3/4. So in this equation, remember that's your slope, that's your m. So you have part of your equation ready to go. So I can start my answer. Y equals 3/4 x plus or minus something. We got to figure out what that y-intercept is. So we'll use this same formula to figure it out. Now, looking at these 2 points, if there's a 0 involved, I like to use that because it's just an easy number to work with. So I'm going to use 0, -10 for my x and my y. So we'll have, instead of y equals, we're going to type in -10 equals. Instead of m times x, m is 3/4, which we just found out. X is 0. Oh, anything times 0, that's easy. Okay, so solve it for b. You're trying to get b by itself. Well, 3/4 times 0, that's 0. So you have -10 equals 0 plus b. You can just get rid of the 0. B is -10. That's your y-intercept. There's the other part of your equation. All right, so it can be tricky. When I show you the next video, I'm going to show you how to get that same thing using the graphing calculator. But if you feel comfortable and you want to try this method, you're certainly welcome to. So you do your slope, plug that in along with one of your points into y equals mx plus b for these 3 values and solve for b. And then you'll have your slope and y-intercept. All right, have a great day. There is no practice to go along with this just yet.